My first guest tonight is a two-time Academy Award winner, a Tony winner, and an all-around legend. Please welcome back to The Late Show, the one, the only, Denzel Washington.
Some nights on television, nothing goes according to plan. What begins as a perfectly ordinary celebrity interview can unravel into something that stops the entire country mid-scroll and forces people to pick a side. This is the story of one of those nights. A night when a legendary actor walked onto a late-night stage expecting a conversation about his craft and walked off having delivered one of the most memorable exits in television history. The Ed Sullivan Theater was buzzing with its usual electric energy. Audience members filed in, ticket stubs in hand, settling into their seats with the comfortable anticipation of a good show. Nobody expected anything unusual. Denzel Washington was booked as the guest, and that alone was reason enough to be excited. He was there to promote his latest project as a director, a deeply personal drama about redemption, second chances, and the complicated journey back to who you once were. The film was earning serious awards buzz, and this late-night appearance was a key stop on the promotional tour. But backstage, the atmosphere was very different. According to sources familiar with the production, the show's writing staff had spent that afternoon preparing a very different kind of interview. Rather than focusing on the film, they had assembled a series of pointed questions designed to corner Washington on his publicly known Christian faith and his traditionally conservative personal values. The host, reportedly confident in his audience's sympathies, had told producers he wanted to challenge what he described as the narrative Washington had been carefully crafting in other interviews. Washington's publicist, listening from the wings during rehearsal prep, was already uneasy. She had heard enough to know this wasn't the conversation her client had agreed to. When Washington finally walked out onto that stage, the applause was genuine and warm. He carried himself with the relaxed authority of someone completely at home in the public eye, offering his signature easy smile as he shook the host's hand and took his seat. For the first few minutes, everything felt normal. There was light conversation about the new film, a little back and forth about Washington's legendary work ethic, and the kind of comfortable chemistry that makes for enjoyable television. Then the host pivoted. He asked Washington about faith, specifically about how his personal beliefs had shaped the film's themes of forgiveness. It seemed like a reasonable opening. Washington answered thoughtfully, explaining that faith, in whatever form it takes for a person, gives a framework for understanding what it means to truly forgive someone, including yourself. The audience responded warmly. But the host wasn't looking for warmth. He pushed further, suggesting there was something ironic about Hollywood figures invoking moral values, implying that actors who speak about faith are somehow lecturing their audience. Washington, sensing the shift in tone, clarified calmly that there is a difference between sharing your perspective and forcing it on others. He wasn't preaching, he said. He was simply being honest about who he is. That is when the conversation stopped being an interview and started becoming something else entirely. The host pressed Washington directly on his silence regarding specific political and social issues, naming marriage equality, reproductive rights, and the role of religion in public life. He suggested that claiming the moral high ground of faith while staying quiet on controversial positions was a form of hypocrisy. Having it both ways, as he put it. A hush fell over the studio. This was not the warm banter audiences expected from late-night television. Washington kept his composure. He explained that his faith teaches him to love people, not judge them. That when he talks about values, he means dignity, hard work, and caring for the people around you. He made clear he wasn't running for office and wasn't asking a single person to adopt his beliefs. The host pushed harder, asking directly whether Washington's church didn't have strong opinions on these issues, and whether silence itself wasn't a political position. Washington's expression changed. The performer's smile disappeared, and something more guarded took its place. He asked, quietly but pointedly, whether this interview was supposed to be about the film he came to discuss, or whether the host was simply trying to manufacture a viral political moment. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. They could feel the current in the room change, but they weren't sure yet how to respond. The host, emboldened rather than humbled by Washington's pushback, escalated. He invoked democracy, civil rights, and marginalized communities, arguing that someone with Washington's platform and influence has a responsibility to take public stands. He said that using faith as a moral identity while avoiding the political implications of that faith raised serious questions. Washington's voice rose for the first time. He pointed out that he had never claimed moral authority over anyone, and that the host was now doing something very specific. He wasn't asking questions. He was trying to force a guest into political declarations that had nothing to do with the reason he had agreed to appear on the show in the first place. The host, fully committed now, accused Washington of deflection. He called it cowardice dressed up as wisdom, the habit of wrapping ambiguity in the language of principle to avoid accountability. That word, cowardice, landed differently than anything that had come before. Washington rose from his chair. What followed was not a shouting match, though voices rose. It was something rarer on television. A man refusing to be diminished and refusing to do it quietly. Washington told the host directly that what was happening in that studio was not journalism, not accountability, and not courage. He called it an ambush, conducted with better lighting. He pointed out the fundamental unfairness of a host sitting behind a desk with a captive audience, attacking a guest who came in good faith based on a completely different agreement about what the conversation would cover. The host told him to sit down. Washington did not. When the host suggested that Washington simply could not handle tough questions, Washington replied with something that cut through the studio like cold air. He said he respected himself too much to keep participating in what had become a circus. Then he turned, not to the host, but to the cameras. He addressed the audience at home directly, apologizing that they had tuned in expecting to hear about a film and instead witnessed this. He mentioned that the movie was opening that week and that he hoped people would judge it on its own terms. The host, now publicly upstaged on his own program, accused Washington of using the show for free publicity after calling him names. Washington looked back at him with something closer to pity than anger. He said he was doing what professionals do, honoring his commitment to everyone who worked on that film, even if the host could not honor the commitment to conduct a basic, respectful interview. The exchange that followed was brief but brutal. The host accused Washington of being condescending and self-righteous. Washington told him he grew up without much in Mount Vernon, and that where he came from, a man's word meant something, and treating people with dignity was not optional. It was expected. He told the host this was not the real world. It was a stage set built around the performance of outrage. When the host finally told him to leave, Washington was already on his way. He stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. He told the audience that this was not what he had come for. He said they deserved better. Then he walked out. The studio went quiet in a way that studios almost never do. The host, left alone on his stage, tried to compose himself before the next commercial break. He managed a single halting sentence, acknowledging that things had gone unexpectedly. It satisfied no one. A significant portion of the audience walked out during the break rather than stay for the rest of the show. Meanwhile, backstage, Washington's team met him with coats and phones already ringing. His agent apologized. He told her it wasn't her fault. Some people, he said, show you who they are when the cameras are on. Within hours, the confrontation was everywhere online. Clips spread rapidly, and public reaction was decisive. The audience at home had watched both men in real time, and they had drawn their own conclusions. Think pieces appeared in major publications the next morning. Advertisers called the show's production team with concerns. The host's ratings dropped sharply in the weeks that followed, and the damage to his reputation proved difficult to repair. Washington gave a single public comment when reporters asked. He said he wished the host well and hoped he would learn something from the experience. Then he went back to work. The film Washington had come to promote opened that Friday to strong reviews and solid box office numbers. More than a few critics noted the strange irony that a story about forgiveness and second chances had been overshadowed by a host who seemed incapable of offering either. But beyond the ratings and the headlines and the social media numbers, what lingered from that night was something harder to quantify. It was the image of a man choosing dignity over engagement. Choosing to walk away not because he was losing, but because he understood that some battles diminish you simply by fighting them. There is a difference between accountability and ambush, between asking hard questions and using someone's presence on your stage as raw material for your own performance. That night, television illustrated that difference in a way that required no additional commentary. One man left the stage with everything he walked in with. The other was left standing alone, trying to explain to an empty room how things had gotten so far out of hand. Late-night television has seen its share of memorable moments, surprise announcements, emotional reunions, stunning performances. But what happened that night at the Ed Sullivan Theater was something different. It was a reminder that dignity is not a prop, that integrity is not a talking point, and that the cameras, which are supposed to make us more accountable, sometimes reveal instead exactly who we are when we think the power is on our side. Denzel Washington walked in to talk about a movie. He walked out having said something that no script could have written, and that, in the end, was the only story worth telling.